Don't worry, I haven't forgotten. I'm just waiting. And seeing how things pan out, seeing if there's like any initial problems that'll show up. So let me take a sip of water. And we are live. It's been a few days, but my hiatus was one I kind of enjoyed, simply because it let me get familiar with YouTube's editing software, and also because it made me realize that since I'm only doing light editing, which means basically cutting out the stuff before or I start gaming and after, basically all the stuff where I'm showing like the end card, I can probably just set aside like Saturday or Thursday for it. So yeah, in the future, if I do take a break, it'll be for something more than that, or alternatively, I'll be like waiting for a stream update. So yeah, I'm not going to be like starting off the mod from scratch. I do actually have a game ready, but I've barely done anything. Like, first, might as well show off the mods. It's because, unlike in the past, where I've mainly used either vanilla, where I've mainly used AAI or space exploration, we're looking at a very different set of mods. Specifically, Angels and Bob's mods. These ones have been around for quite a while, and they're quite different. I'm not going to update those mods that you saw because, first of all, doing so would require me to restart this game. Yeah, that's how Factorio works. Even if you're not using the mods, you have to restart every time you update them. I can understand, like, when you decide to enable or disable mods, even if it's just a cosmetic one. Let's just see how this menu simulation plays out. Huh. But yeah. Let's wait for the game to finish loading. This is Seablock. Now, if you can't tell on the bottom, I've got crafting for this thing called cellulose fiber. You may be wondering why I'm crafting so much of it. Well, if you can't tell, in this mod, it's very different from vanilla Factorio. For one thing, we do not mine resources. Instead, rather, we'll be essentially excavating in them. Actually, I don't think excavating is the right word. We'll be basically turning seawater, which we have a lot of, and it's basically infinite, into resources. Now, you might be wondering what I'm doing in here. Long story short, I'm basically making sure trying to set up a 4x4 thing of windmills and power poles properly, and rather than just having to constantly do trial and error, I'm just setting this up in advance. Also, since a good chunk of this mod is just waiting around, I installed a mod that lets me speed things up. Excuse me a minute, I almost forgot to turn off Discord notifications. Could have sworn I disabled it, but oh well. Now that I think about it, I have Prism set so it won't pick up other overlays. And you may be wondering what these two things are. These are companion drones. They're basically two things I installed for the sake of making this start out faster. I'm just doing this to show off how they run. I thought about just using a mod that gives me a bot start instead, but man, I might as well show off and use this as an excuse to show off a mod. Since at the moment that is kind of my gimmick. But yeah, as you can see, our goal is basically, in order to actually build things, we have to put landfill down. So that is something we will be needing quite a bit of. There is a way to get more, but I'm going to set up power first with something we had in this rock chest thing that I already gathered off screen. Also, speaking of off-screen prep, I've essentially queued up all the research that does not require red science in advance. How do I research it then, you may ask? Long story short, we will be, or each one has a different task associated with it. And rather than some of them will just complete automatically when I get and some will require me. Unfortunately, there's very few that you do this way, which is kind of unfortunate. Like, I'd love more mods that let you just discover things naturally. Like this. Hell, I've seen one suggestion for the space exploration mod where if where, for example, that would let you gather, that I would really like, but no, it's not really practical. That being having gathering data for one of the science packs that requires a whole train by actually colliding the train with its aim physically on like a simulation. Kind of like how, for example, for weapons, they'll like just in testing. They'll like just shoot weapons. The good news about those lamps that I added, I decided to do install the Dark Nights mod for the sake of just us getting in the habit of placing lamps. But yeah, quite a few different things from Vanilla Factorio. For one thing, we have these pipes made out of stone, which I'm going to be relying on quite a bit, at least early on. I'm going to be setting up the electrolyzers, I believe they're called. Yeah, at these things like this for the simple reason of... For two reasons. First of all, why not? And second, in doing so allows me to basically ensure that I'm not excessively using any power lines. Now, in order to get more landfill, I need slag. Come to think of it, I also probably shouldn't be using... Actually, no, wait. If I simply build more, I'll probably be fine. Plus... you know what? If it's still yellow instead of red, so I'd say that I should be... That for now, I'm fine, but I should eventually switch over... Start putting more down. Which I think I'll just go do right now, just to be safe. Each one of these requires roughly a 5x5, so... There we go. Just for the sake of... consistency, let's also move our lamps. Now, aside from... while these produce slag, which is all well and fine, these also produce another thing that I need to get rid of. Or should I say things. Hydrogen and oxygen gas. In an ideal world, I could just burn the gases for fuel, or hell, I'd actually be able to just, like, set aside pipe for using them. But we do not have that capacity yet, even though both of these gases are flammable on their own. Yeah, fun fact about that. In a bit of irony, both of these gases, which are components of water, which we're surrounded by, if you can't already tell, were key reasons as to why the Hindenburg burned. They weren't, like, the only cause. Like, us, obviously. No one's really sure what caused it to burn down, in fact. There's a lot of theories. Is diesel fuel leak accidentally sparked? Not really going to go into depth. But yeah. I'm going to be using these stone filtering furnaces, since aside from the fact that they do not cost any more than the regular furnaces, they also mean that I can actually determine what the input is. Whereas if I was using is meaning that when I get inserters unlocked, which is not going to be for a while, unfortunately. I'll be able to just insert it ahead of time. Another thing I would love to be able to do is actually just start stashing the cellulose in chests. But unfortunately, I do not have those unlocked. Even the wooden ones. Could have gotten a better starting position now that I think about it. Which actually has some wood. If it... I wouldn't... It's not like I've gotten... I needed to do a bunch of stuff in advance. So if I do need to restart, hey, you guys at least get to see what this mod looks from the very beginning. But yeah, eventually I'm going to want to actually start storing those gases. And while I don't have it myself, I am aware that there are people who might have trypophobia. So one of the options I enabled was basically one that replaces is the tryphobic graphic, which I'm not going to show up because it would kind of contradict what the point I was trying to make, with one that is far friendlier. And honestly, I kind of prefer, since the other one looked more like some like thing I'd expect from a biological research thing or something. As you can see, we've already unlocked not one, but 2 researches. Another thing, as you can see, is that this mod requires a lot of hand crafting. I mean, at least early on. What am I doing here, you might ask? Well, aside from the fact that this is how you get iron early on. These furnaces are unique because you can actually just set filters and they'll let you know in advance. And they'll basically work as such. For example, this one is set so that it only accepts iron, meaning that, and whereas this one will only accept the material needed to make copper. You might be worried about the pollution from these two things. Well, Seablock's default pollution setting, it actually does not... Seablock by default actually turns pollution off. Now, as you can imagine, it is kind of a hassle constantly having to empty the slag from these electrolyzers. But fortunately, in the near future, that won't be a problem once I get inserters, since I'll be able to gather that and turn it into chests. In case you're wondering what I'm doing, this is simply a way of granting this pump more usage. You might be wondering why I'm not using coal. Well, long story short, coal is not something you can get easily in this mod. I mean, I could. Since this is a mod showcase and not on an actual playthrough, I wouldn't be opposed to just like opening the console and adding it, but through the editor extensions mod, but I'm not going to. If I was going to edit something in, I'd actually just edit in a bunch of landfill. Given that landfill stacks to 10,000, I'd probably be able to make a very sizable... 1,000, not 10,000. I'd be able to make a very sizable amount in a chest just from one unwooden chest. I'm actually very tempted to, especially since it's not like this mod has any custom achievements. Yep. In case you're curious why that is what the one I just completed was, all I needed to do was gather some brown algae, this stuff. Which I can then eventually turn into paper. And this is how we get our circuits in this game. Eventually, I'll have enough of this cellulose pulp to actually make paper, which I can then turn into wooden boards. Seems like it should be cardboard, but whatever. And then in combination with some wire, which I'll make from these copper plates I have, we'll have circuits. Kind of feel like I should be able to get basic logistics unlocked. As far as I know, paper has no other use, and I'm gonna double check it. That's what this button was for, in case you're curious. Wooden boards, green wire. Odd choice, but okay. And yeah, no other real usage for quite a while, actually. Eventually, I'll probably want to, like, move this so that I can, like, position the same in a second one of these on the other side. Now, these two things right here are better fuel sources, although I can't really do much for them right now, at least there's not really any reason for me to make them. I mean, true, I could use them and to make it so that the cellulose in these lasts longer, which I'm actually probably going to do, and in fact, I will do. Oh, right, I forgot that I had some of these from that starter chest. And we're unfortunately reaching the end of the point where we can actually get stuff without red signs. But the good news is that, unlike in space exploration, I can make red signs by hand. So that raises the obvious question of what should I go after first. Basic logistics, steam power, long inserters, and automation come to mind. But the real one I'm interested in is washing. Why, you may ask? Washing, currently we lack our means of getting a hold of more landfill are very lackluster, to say the least. With washing, on the other hand, we will be swimming in landfill, provided we can actually keep making power supplied. Yeah, power is something that's an obstacle, since, you know, it's not like we can just plop down on a mining drill on coal. There. Even after I take, and when I'm not gathering enough of slag, they'll still produce it, which means that I'm in a much better, and I won't be limited by and I'm waiting around gathering other slag, like producing things. I'm thinking iron gears will be the first thing I mass produce. Now, currently, this isn't exactly very efficient, but currently what I'm limited by in regards to making science is copper, which is kind of different than, since normally it's iron that's in demand. I'm thinking I should get automation out of the way before long inserters. As you can see, we've got a lot of stuff ahead of us. Not really considering a spoiler, since, hey, it's not like I'm going to be showing off all the mod. But I'm building out our washing production chain in advance. In case you're curious what these R recipes with R next to them are, these are from a mod that basically allows me to rearrange the fluids. In case you're curious why I'm doing this in advance, is here as opposed to, say, on use in the game using a shift plus click. There's some things you actually need to just be able to actually use beforehand, as opposed to just blueprint them out, since you could, for example, misinput the ratios. Now, there are a few things that I'm going to do that I'm not sure how good of an idea they actually are. I'm playing this kind of blind. I actually did a completely blind run where I just screwed around. So I'm not completely clueless, but one thing I am going to do is basically convert all the stuff. You have them all be in the same pipeline. And there is actually one byproduct that I will want to actually save up. It's this yellow and white stuff for later, or since that's how I'll be making sulfur. Unlike with Ithosei space exploration, I actually don't need to worry about things going awry while I was in this blueprint thing, simply because, well, if you didn't pay attention, there isn't really anything for me to be concerned about, because as the nearest group of enemies is so far away. Now, Now, what I really want from this is not the water, but rather the mud, since that's what we'll be converting into landfill. But what about the water that gets left out at the end, you might ask? That's what this clarifier is for. I just have a preference for using the pipe to ground. If you're curious what these one pipe gaps are for, this is in case as I decide to use any process later on that uses the that uses is one of the outputs. In an ideal world, I could just convert saline water into regular water. Okay. And then run it back in, but since that's not an option, I'll just run an offshore pump. But that's not the only type of pump I'll be relying on. I guess the real question I have now is, do I want to give each one its individual offshore pumps, or do I just like combine them? I'll be using these seafloor pumps. What do they do? Ooh, long story short, they dredge up water from, well, the bottom of the ocean. You know what? I'll figure out how I want to handle this. This later. For times like this, it's a good thing to have a mod that lets you speed up time. So just so that I can plot things out, let's see how much landfill I would need. Okay, that's 5 for each one. Keep in mind, this is assuming that I'd be doing the bare minimum, nothing connecting. In each one sort of thing. Good news is that, and since that this does account is that I can place landfill underneath it. Stuff I've already put down in the Blueprints sandbox mod. So all I have to do to ensure that the design pans out is copy. This design and place down the land. Fill I need to place. And since I know some of you are going to wonder what that I just put down was for, that's how I'll be getting more landfill. And you may be wondering, why did I put 2 inserters next? Huh. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot that that you get everything unlocked if you in the blueprint sandbox. Good news is that even with this clarifier, or even though I forgot about the clarifier, I have more than enough landfill left on me. So let's see where this landfill goes. Where did I? Oh, wait, almost forgot there's a search bar. There is, however, one drawback to this. It's quite power hungry. As mentioned, my preferred choice would be straight up burning the fluids, and while there is actually something that lets you do that, the problem is that I won't be able to use it for quite a while. Fluid burning boiler. It's locked behind quite a few things of research. There is one other thing I forgot to put. What did I make this for? Oh well. Anyways. I could actually save some on landfill if I just... So you know what? Let's make a copy of this. Now, hypothetically, I could actually just... have the burner or ore crushers take it directly from the crystallizers, but I'd rather not. I'd get too ahead of myself. You know what? Only two instead of one is not going to be the end of the world. I almost forgot out about the one unplant that I need to take care of. My bad. If only this was like 2x. Ten x. Good news is we can now build steam boilers, although we will still... And also upgrade our crushers to electric ones. The bad news is, well, this... solve our main issue. Now, I will eventually start switching. Now, if I was doing this in the long run, I would eventually switch over from just crushing the slag into stone and then turning it into the material. I'd instead use something called slurry, which I'm going to level with you. I don't actually know how to produce. Like, I actually, like, called it quits on my test game right before that point. Since these stone pipes are just are ones I just use as temporary ones, I've decided that I will upgrade to iron whenever I have the opportunity. Would have surprised they aren't aren't compatible with the upgrade planner. Oh well. I prefer using these underground pipes whenever possible, since aside from the fact that they don't restrict your mobility, I also just like how they look better. Speaking of pipes, I believe that's all the stone pipes that I need. I hate it when this happens. After thinking it over, the best option I have for dealing with my water solution is what I'm going to do. It's actually modifying the design slightly. Since I'm not doing anything, I'm just going to convert all this green algae and cellulose. Oh, hey, it's you. In case you're... I am going to do a Minecraft playthrough in the future. I know you're probably excited about that. Didn't notice you at first. But it's only... But I am... As I may have mentioned before, texture pack needs to drop, but should be sometime in the next week or so, depending on... Let's just say... I'm not going to say what it is, but let's just say that it's something that if I had a capture card, there was actually a decent chance I would be playing right now. Instead of Factorio. Okay, so the good news is that I do have... I'm just one unresearch away from being able to get these... Being able to get this up and running. And, of course, well, one research and 12 constructions of these small inline tanks, but I'm close. After that, it'll just be... I'll just have to fix the power issue. Easier said than done. Now, you may be wondering why that was so important. It's because of these. Aside from the fact that I like to always have a buffer, there's also the fact that that I need them for this design. Now, as you can see, there is currently a tiny problem with this. I did not intend to do this, but hey, it gives me a chance to explain why I need these tanks so much. I guess since I don't have anything else to research at the moment, I might as well do lamps, sulfur processing, and slag processing, which was actually what I got stuck on in my test run. Now, if you're curious about the title, this is basically as mentioned in the description, this is basically an adaptation of the Skyblock mod for Minecraft. After this game, you can probably tell what the difference is without me needing to explain. You're probably wondering what these things do. Basically, at first, it gathers sea water off the seafloor, which includes mud from the seafloor, and then it's filtered. During the filtration, each step gives mud. At the end, currently, since I do not have any need for this saline water that's produced, no wonder I wasn't getting anything. I had the wrong recipe set up. But yeah, in theory, all I have to do now is just wait and I'll get landfill. So that gives... So, since I'm here, I might as well solve my power supply issues. How will I go about that, you might ask? It involves these algae farms. And while I'm at it, I might as well make a beeline for the better ones. I almost forgot that if I do not have a burner or ore crusher, I cannot crush ore. Oh well, at least it's not like it was a particularly big mistake. Like, better to make a mistake like that early on than later on. So, what am I doing now, you might ask? Giving myself an automated way to collect the crushed stone. Is this perfect? No, but hey, the important thing is it works for me. Can I hand... No, I cannot. This is all just one stack of landfill. Can you believe it? Eventually, I'm going to want to scale this up so that it's at least, like, 4 things. 3 or 4 things. And I'll probably actually have it all be on, like, one centralized thing. But before that happens, I need a better power supply. And that's where this algae farm comes in. As well as... Could have sworn there was a better recipe for algae. Wait a second. I know there's a better recipe for algae. Yeah. Am I missing something, or... Wait, that's right. I can just look at this. Well, for now, it's not exactly in the cards, since, well, if you can't tell, I do not have the means of produce... I don't have what I need to produce the required materials, but I will eventually. In the meanwhile, I'm just going to convert all of this green algae into cellulose fiber. So, if you who are curious, next week I'll be starting a series on a Pokemon game. Not Scarlet or Violet or Sword or Shield, but a fan game. You may have heard of it. It's called Pokemon Imperium. Very interested in it, since it's the first time I've heard of a Pokemon game with dating sim features. Fun fact on that topic. Did you know that the Ocarina of Time was originally going to have a dating sim mechanic? The reason it did not, in case you're curious, was, well, long story short, the game's plot basically would have made it impossible. Like, by the time... Oh, there was, like... At the end game, all the characters Link could have there was only, like, 1 or 2 characters Link could have hooked up with that wouldn't have been, like, off limits. It wouldn't have been, like, particularly risque. Like, it would have been, like... It would have been as much as the rating, which I think was T, would have allowed. But it is a very interesting what-if to consider. Admittedly, I'm basing that off of what I read on TV tropes, but hey, it would actually be fun to, like, see someone make a mod for the game that incorporates that feature. I'd play it. Let's see. I'm getting tired of getting stuck in this labyrinth. Let's fill out the sides. And before you ask, the water pump will actually keep on working. That's since it becomes an in-ground water pump. It's a nice little Easter egg the devs added. The catch is, however, you have to place the pump up on ground before filling it with landfill, since, well, you obviously can't place it on water that's on ground that doesn't have any water below it. There is actually an item in this mod pack that I'm using that has that lets you actually use groundwater. I'm not going to get to it tonight, since this is more just a mod showcase. Like, I'm actually, come to think of it, I never really defined what the cutoff point was. These two companion drones are very... Haven't had them yet. That I've had, and it's good. Just stop. That got me chicken wings, in case you're curious what I'm doing now. Eating's honestly perfect for a mod like this. What should I queue up next? Oops. Did not want to select Discord. Biter domestication. That's interesting. For the most part, I think you can ignore military for a long time, but this certainly does give you reasons to go down, to at least invest in some research for it. I brought something to wipe my hands off with. I'll hook the I'll hook my slag production things back up as soon as I get all the slag that I had in my inventory taken care of. And since I'm not doing, I'm just going to convert all this brown algae to organic acid. Good haul in terms of site ore. I actually think I'm doing a bit better in this run, simply because I know what the general idea of what I'm going for is. Yeah, I'm actually more confident. I would not be opposed to doing a full series on this in the future. Maybe with like a helper or something, like maybe 500 subscriber special or something. I don't know. Let's just double check to make sure I'm not wasting this organic acid on... Yeah, just as I thought. There is literally no reason for me to eat a stockpile. It's not even like I could turn it into some bet... Well, now that I think about it, it would be better if I could. And we're back at the low power phase of my base, but hey, at least we're making progress. If I had more landfill and belts, belts and inserters, I'd probably devise some complex system that would let me just gather. No, wait, I'd need filter inserters for that as well. How? Okay, that's actually not terrible, like. Well, in terms of how long to get there. Just realized I probably only need one. Feels good to have a small trickle of plates. I would obviously like more. Would have expected it more gassed. To have piled up. Up by now, but So I haven't really mentioned this, at least on the stream, but I've been trying to apply to like go corporate as a VTuber, you know, since pay would give me a crowd of people to hang out with. Which honestly is the main reason why I got into streaming. Well, that and the fact that I used to have a Facebook page and just post memes, but one day out of the blue, for some odd reason, in Facebook decided that me posting a screenshot of a world conquest in Hearts of Iron 4 was against the terms of service. Yes, I'm not making that up, by the way. It wasn't even as Germany, which I could maybe understand since Zuckerberg is Jewish, but I can maybe perhaps see him getting a bit comfortable. Never mind the fact that if he did that, he'd also have to like remove any screenshots where you play as Germany in any game, even ones that take place before the Nazis were a thing. And it is certainly frustrating in that none of my applications have been accepted. But you know what? It's not like I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. I am considering the possibility that I might be independent and pay. I have ideas if I do go independent. Although I might need a tiny bit of help from whoever's watching. Not like I want you guys to submit content for me, rather just check into something for me. Namely, are there any VTubers who do like readings of stories of any kind? Because I'm seriously considering doing that. Like, wouldn't be anything major, just stuff in the public domain, you know, that no one has the copyright to anymore. If I had like a guarantee that like I wouldn't get sued, I'd probably actually read something like something that's actually copyrighted, like Roadside Picnic. Then again, I don't really know what the... status of books that weren't of copyright in regards to if it's like not from the United States. Like, I know you can buy a Roadside Picnic physically in the US. Hell, I happen to have a copy. It's more like, who would the copyright holder be in that case? Note to self, I should really get familiar with foreign copyright, if only because, well, I could, for example, see if whatever it is in Russia that's flagging my Hearts of Iron 4 streams occasionally, yes, really, is actually justified in doing so. Like, it was actually, I'm not like angry or anything. I'm more just amused, if anything, simply because, well, like, of all the countries that could get me, like, I live in the United States, if you don't know, so I would was expecting that if I did get hit, it would be something there. Although I would honestly question why anyone would bother wasting their time, since, well, if you look at my subscriber count, I don't exactly make a lot of... I'd kind of be a waste of time for anyone to copyright strike, but... I think what I'll do next is design... a simple few... little assembly line. Since I've decided I actually do want to, like, continue on with this, maybe it'll replace space exploration for the reaction streams, especially since I've decided that until the next major version of that drops, I'm not going to touch it. I could also do another game. If anyone has any suggestions. I may not have filter inserters, but what I do have is splitters, which let... Obviously, four of these are not the solution. Perhaps 8. 8 is either, or maybe I need to just like boost the number of... Okay, I've got a test one. Yeah, this idea works. Admittedly, I will need... As mentioned before, which I almost forgot, always have a buffer. Okay, maybe the buffer isn't the best idea for this specifically, but... I'd either need to double my output of algae as well as fuel, or I'd need... I think I'm going to call it a stream soon. And I will actually continue this on Sunday. With this specific file as well. So if you want to see more, tune in then. But yeah, a few more minutes of this, then... And I think I'll call it a stream. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely long past the time for me to upgrade my power supply. Fortunately, I have something on the horizon for that. Okay, yeah. I think I'll just lay down on the planned blueprint I have. Where would be a good spot? Then I'm gonna call it a stream for real. yeah, my idea is taking fruit, so I will see you all next Sunday when I do a reaction stream to someone who has become relevant for idiotic things he said about the VTuber community. Until then, I'm Andreas Rebel. I'll see you all next assignment.